Welcome into another MLS six pack here on the SDH network. I'm Madison Cruz. Join with me is Jason Longshore as we get you ready for match week 2 for the MLS 30th season and second week of the 2025 season as well.
Mhm.
Well, get ready. Let's go ahead and get started with a quick recap of everything that happened in week 1 because I don't know about you, but for me, I felt like it was like really hectic for no reason at all.
Yeah, there were a ton of goals in it. There was all kinds of chaos. There were red cards in the first halves of games, some drama, all kinds of stuff. Messi going for the Vulcan nerve pinch on an NYC assistant coach. All kinds of crazy things in week 1. That means week 2 is either going to be crazier or really boring. I'm thinking crazier.
I would agree with you. I think especially when you look at everything that happened, we'll get into the Lionel Messi, net grab, pinch, all the above, because it wasn't just him. Luis Suarez also got in there a little bit as well with
He did not go for a Vulcan nerve pinch, though.
didn't do that, no.
No, he
He
is not a Vulcan.
But we'll go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that is a big, big point to me looking at everything for match week 1 is San Diego.
Mhm.
Looking at the expansion team, the 30th team in MLS, the 30th season, they came out and they beat the reigning MLS champions of last season in LA Galaxy. And they did it not in a way that you would expect of, oh, they got lucky on a couple times. No,
Yeah.
they looked like a put together team, a team that has been playing together for a while now.
I thought they were the better team. Could have won by a wider margin. Now, this isn't the LA Galaxy that won MLS Cup last year. I think we have to remember that. No Dejan Joveljic anymore. No Ricky Pooch for a long time. No Joseph Paintsil for a short period of time. He'll be back sooner rather than later. Marco Royce was a disappointment, I think, in the match. Expected more from him. I thought the Galaxy would be better, even if not as good as last year. But San Diego was really good. I don't want to take anything away from San Diego. It wasn't that the Galaxy were bad, so San Diego benefited. San Diego was really good. Mikey Veras has got a group that has bought into the way that he wants to play. It's still super early. That can change, especially with a brand new team. Things can fall apart. We'll never know. But they get back home after a good win on the road against a team that they would like to have a rivalry with. And now they get back home for their home opener this weekend. So they're going to be a fun watch. They're going to be an interesting team to watch this season for sure.
Which, by the way, their stadium name, Snapdragon Stadium, is
Mhm.
such a fun name. I love it. I think it's so fun. Like,
I am not up off the top of my head on what Snapdragon is. I know it's a sponsor of some sort. I don't know what a Snapdragon company does. I'm sure
I
somebody
love
will
it.
know in the comments and I can throw it in. But yeah, it's a stadium. Look, that we saw She Believes Cup there last night. We've seen San Diego Wave there. It's a really good stadium. I want to see if it's full for this game. I hope it is.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to other big things that happened in week 1. We obviously have to talk about Atlanta United versus CF Montreal. We got to see the first game ever under the Ronnie Dyla
Hmm.
We got to see the return of Miguel Amaron to the team, to the Five Stripes. We also got to see Emmanuel Latelat earn his first ever brace with the team and earn his first 2 ever goals with Atlanta United as well.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered this one pretty in depth on the network. But for anybody who's listening that hasn't heard it, I think it's a work in progress. I think you heard from Ronnie Dyla, you heard from Mateusz Klick, you heard from Matt Edwards after the game on the full time report on 92.9 The Game. They were happy about the win, but they weren't happy about the way the team played in the second half. So you got a good 45 minutes of quality play, and you got a good 90 plus minutes of quality work. And I'll take that. Like that's okay. They're going to play better for longer periods of time, the longer that they're together. That was the first time that attacking quartet had played together in a match that mattered or didn't matter. They didn't get to play together in preseason. They need to be better overall. And as I've said a lot leading up to this point, they're going to have to find that balance between being direct, intense, in your face, like they were for large portions of the first half, and keeping the ball and taking the pressure away a little bit and slowing things down when the time calls for it, catching their breath and maintaining more control at times as well. And Mateusz Klick talked about that with you after the match. I think it's something that you have to find that balance. And it's not as easy as flipping a switch. It's not as easy as just, oh, now we do this. No, you have to feel that. They're going to develop that feel as they go. Also, look, you're playing a team in Montreal that likes to have a lot of the ball. So the game went a certain way against a team like Charlotte, who isn't as interested in possession, although at home they probably will be a little more interested. I'm curious to see what it looks like against teams that are possession dominant. I'm curious to see what that looks like. And I'm curious to see when they play teams like Red Bulls here coming up here shortly, teams that don't really want the ball, what that looks like. So, very fun early game in the Ronnie Dyla experience. And I want to see how it continues to go from here.
We'll get into the discussion and the preview for that matchup here later on in the show. But as we continue on looking at some of the big talking points, I think another one has to be Inter Miami versus NYCFC, that 2-2 draw. Lionel Messi came back to, tie it up for Miami, and things got a little heated. As also, heated at the very beginning of the game as they were shown down a man, had to play with 10 men, shown a red card.
Aviles is a walking red card at this point for Inter Miami, and they're going to have to figure that out. Either he's going to have to figure out, I don't know if he needs some medication before a game to chill out. I don't know, but something, maybe a shot of brandy. I have no idea. He's going to have to figure something out because he can't keep picking up red cards. He can't keep putting his team in bad spots. But they found a way out of it. Atlanta, I mentioned hard work for 90 plus. Miami's the same thing. They worked hard. They found a way to get something out of it. They would have won in 3, but the perseverance, the resilience was great from Inter Miami. And these two teams, I think, both showed that. Now, things did get heated, and the red cards in the run of play are one thing. Messi got in trouble for a post-match incident, and Suarez got in trouble as well. The Messi one, look, if anybody tries to tell you that he doesn't care, just ask Mehdi Bellucci about it. Ask the referee who Messi was yelling at, and then guys were trying to pull him away, and he continues to yell at him. And then the guys finally pull him away. Then he goes back to yell some more. He cares. He's taking this very, very seriously, and at times, look, maybe a little too seriously. You like to see that if you're Javier Mascherano, if you are Inter Miami, and if you're Inter Miami fans, you should love to see that, whether he's right or wrong, the fact that he's that engaged. Just don't be so engaged that you grab an opposing assistant coach by the back of the neck and pinch him. I've seen people try to paint this in different lights, and no, he had his hand around the back of his neck and he pinched him. He didn't choke him. I've seen people leave out like, he put his hands around the neck of an assistant coach. Well, that could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
He had his hand around the back of his neck and pinched him. And it looked like Bellucci said something to Messi as he was walking off too. So, look.
Details
should you
matter?
do it? No. Kids watching? No. Emulate a lot of things about Lionel Messi. Don't emulate that specific aspect, but emulate his passion. Mm-hmm. And especially at his age, he's still trying to do these things and doing these things and maybe getting a little out of control with the emotion at times. You will take that if you're Inter Miami and you're Javier Mascherano.
Yeah, I agreed with Dax McCarty, I think, said it really nicely, especially when he was on the MLS wrap-up as well as on his social media as well. I think, having that passion, seeing that from Lionel Messi, that's so like, if you're I agree with you completely. If you're Inter Miami, that's what you want to see, especially out of Messi. And going into this season as well, like it also shows, especially with the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which we'll get more into on all of that here shortly. But it shows that he has passion for that. He has passion for the MLS regular season, and he's ready to go in with Inter Miami this season, wanting to win some cups for them. And that's huge. Now, again, that passion's great. Just don't put your hands on another person. That's not.
Don't do it. He can afford the fine. He's going to be okay. He'll be all right. The league will get some money into the slush fund. That's all cool. Don't do it. Keep yourself in check. But that's easier said than done. These Argentines, man, and the Uruguayans like Luis Suarez, it runs thick. All right. It's okay. And you're not going to get it all the way out of their system. Just you want it to stay a little bit more in check than we saw in this one. But week 1, if he's Vulcan nerve pinching guys, you feel pretty good about Lionel Messi in 2025.
Yep. We had another red card also shown at Portland. It was
Yeah.
Portland Timbers. They were shown a red card as well. So a
That
couple of
was an interesting one
yeah,
because Brian White, it's a great ball over the top, and Brian White gets onto it, and I think he's going straight to goal, but he knows exactly what he's doing. Kamal Miller's chasing behind him, and White kind of takes a touch to the right that's completely unexpected, draws the contact. There's contact. It's a foul. And because it's a foul and it's outside the 18 and he's the last man, it's denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. It's a straight up textbook red. You'll feel harsh if you're Portland. You'll feel harsh if you're Kamal Miller, but you have to go red there. You have to. He gets the magic fine for failing to leave the field in a timely manner, which is the dumbest fine in the history of fines in leagues, because you can do that about every single red card if you want to, and I feel like the league often does. Completely deserved red, and Vancouver took full opportunity to punish Portland for it.
yeah.
Portland didn't look good, but again, it's an 11th minute red card. You can only look so good when you're playing a man down for that long. Miami looked a lot better with it. Portland did not in any way look like that. Vancouver took advantage of the open spaces and punished the Timbers for Kamal Miller's mistake and Brian White's savviness.
Yeah. We got one more to discuss. Brian Gutierrez of Chicago Fire FC, he was actually fined and suspended for their next match up against DC United.
Yeah, should have got a red card, didn't.
Yeah. If you watch the video, which if you go to the MLS, MLS.com and you go to the disciplinary committee, they'll show you the clip that's there.
Yeah.
I watched it and I was like, ooh. And that's exactly what it was. Basically, disciplinary committee went back in, watched the tape, gave him that suspension as he should have earned a red card in that situation.
Yeah, just be consistent. That's all I want from the disciplinary committee. Like, referees are going to miss stuff. VARs are going to miss stuff. This one, they give the yellow card. They don't go red. The disciplinary committee comes over the top and gives essentially a red card and suspends him for this upcoming match. I'm with you. It should have been a red to begin with. Things get missed, but if the disciplinary committee is going to look at all these things like this, okay, again, be consistent, because we've seen this throughout seasons before where calls have happened or not happened, situations have happened or not happened, and the disciplinary committee stayed silent on them at times. Hopefully, this is a statement by them that, look, we're paying attention, and you're not going to get away with these sorts of things that endanger the safety of players. It was an elbow to the head. Got to be a red. It wasn't on the field. The disciplinary committee came in over the top and gave it.
A lot of big stuff happened in week 1, but also, too, before we head into week 2, we had more CONCACAF Champions Cup action.
CONCACAF Champions. The greatest tournament. CONCACAF fever. Catch it.
A ton of fun, actually. You had the leg 2 of a lot of these games, and unfortunately, you had a situation that should never be involved in the game, but alas, here it is. But basically, in leg 2 of Colorado Rapids versus LAFC, Chidozie Awaziam alleged he heard a derogatory term from LAFC defender Sergi Palencia.
Yeah, we don't know what happened here. A bunch of statements from teams and the coaches involved. It's what you have to do in the situation. I really feel bad for the commentary the commentator, I cannot remember who was on that game, but he wasn't in Los Angeles. He was in the studio, I'm assuming at Vista in Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily know when you're getting those videos and you're seeing the shots, and you can see that it's something abnormal, but you're not 100% sure, and you don't want to jump to that conclusion. But I thought it was fairly clear fairly quickly that Awaziam was upset about something that happened with Palencia, and people were trying to talk to him about it. This shouldn't happen. Now, we don't know that it did. Things could have been misconstrued. We don't know the details yet. So you don't want to jump to conclusions in a situation. There are times where you get into some different cultural differences about what's accepted, what's not accepted. The league does try to make this clear to players as they come into the league. And I know it's something they do in preseason. It's something they do in midseason when players join clubs, because what's acceptable in one country might not be acceptable in another country to say to somebody. There's differences in Spanish and depending on the country in what's said. So this isn't always a straight line, black and white issue. This is one that do the investigation. We don't know who heard what, but this is where the investigators will talk to other players. They'll talk to the coaches. They'll talk to the referees, the AR. If the referee didn't give any punishment, you would have to assume that they did not hear it, and they can't give red cards or yellow cards based off hearsay. You don't want to see that happen.
No.
So hopefully, I think in these situations, and I know it's not easy to do, but in these situations, it needs to be handled swiftly. It needs to be handled quickly and clearly in terms of what comes out. And hopefully this can come to a resolution and be dealt with.
Both teams did release a statement. I won't read the full statement, but if you
Yeah.
want to go to each of their Twitters, Instagrams, they both released statements explaining CONCACAF is investigating the situation. And then Awazium also released a statement as well on his social medias too. But I mean, echoing everything you said, obviously it's alleged. We don't necessarily know what happened in that moment, but none of this should be happening in the game at all.
Yeah, I mean,
For sure.
again, hopefully it is misunderstanding and it's a learning opportunity. And that's what you want these to be. I think at times we get really hung up on expecting every person from a different culture to automatically assume what is acceptable in a new culture. That's not fair either. So, at a minimum, you hope that this is a learning opportunity if something happened that can clearly be defined in the situation. And you move on, and everybody's better for it. Hopefully, that is the case in the long run here. But CONCACAF, I'm glad that they're investigating. I hope that they get through it quickly so we can move past it instead of having something like this lingering and hovering.
Absolutely. And as we looked more towards the CONCACAF, we moved towards the knockout stage. And 6 MLS teams have made it to the knockout stage. We got a first matchup with 2 MLS teams in LAFC versus Columbus Crew. Their first game is on March 3rd, and that will be at BMO Stadium.
That'll be interesting. That's next week. Columbus didn't have to play the midweek games in the first round. LAFC did. We'll see how that affects them. But LAFC will sit back and try to counter on Columbus, and Columbus will do what they do. And so far, so good with them. I do have questions about their attack in the long run, but that's a fun matchup. We saw it in MLS Cup not that long ago. It's 2 teams that have very different approaches. So usually that can make the most compelling matches.
Inter Miami versus Cavalier SC. That's going to be March 5th at Chase Stadium. Most of
The
these
second
games,
leg's in Jamaica, which is awesome. The
that's going
second
to
leg
be
has
incredible.
already sold out in Jamaica. Cavalier probably should not hang too long with Miami. And the first leg being at Fort Lauderdale, if you are Inter Miami and Javier Mascherano, you want to put that thing away as quickly as possible. You don't want to go into a cauldron in Jamaica in a crazy tight game. You don't want that to happen. And if Miami can handle it next week and get it done quickly, they'll be fine. They can go to Jamaica and enjoy themselves. It's not an easy place, even against lesser teams, to go and get results if you got to have them. So that could be a very interesting first leg to watch.
That second leg, the atmosphere is going to be insane. And
I'm
so
assuming
excited.
that Lionel Messi has never played in Jamaica. So that'll be very exciting on the island and for Cavalier SC.
Moving on, we got Seattle Sounders versus Cruz Azul. That is March 4th at Lumen Field.
Yeah, second leg in Mexico City. That's not easy for Seattle. So you got to make the most of the first leg here. Cruz Azul with our old friend Yorgos Yakimakis. That will be an interesting matchup for Seattle and Cruz Azul. Very even, I think.
FC Cincinnati versus Tigres. That's on March 3rd at TQL Stadium.
Yeah, another one that's pretty even. I think as you're getting into this stage, you're going to have some really tough matchups, and it's all about how you handle your first leg. Cincinnati so far so good. Last night was a 1-1 in CONCACAF, but you had it sealed after the first leg, so you didn't have to go all in. Denke has been good for them so far. Evander has been pretty good. He wasn't as good in the league match. He was good in the CONCACAF match last week. So Cincinnati and Tigres, that's a really good early season test for Cincinnati.
And then we have LA Galaxy versus Herediano. And that's
Our old
going to be
friends
March 4th.
Herediano from Costa Rica. A very mighty small club that won the Costa Rican League last time out. they went to Utah and got a win over Real Salt Lake, even after conceding first. So that says a lot about that group, and an LA Galaxy team that, we talked about it. They're not what they were, and they go on the road in the first game. So Herediano, I don't know off the top of my head the situation. They are refurbishing the stadium that we played in CONCACAF in 2019 with Atlanta United. So I don't think that's done. I'm not sure where they are playing at the moment. But this is a huge game for Herediano. And I think when we talk about LA Galaxy, maybe because of their run of not winning MLS Cups for 10 years, maybe in the United States, you don't have that same reverence for the Galaxy that you used to. But I think internationally, it's very big and they are very well known. So that will be a big match down in Costa Rica on March 4th. And we'll see how the Galaxy can handle that atmosphere on the road in the first leg.
That one's interesting, especially since they go on the road for that one. You look at all the other teams. I mean, looking at LAFC and Columbus Crew, that's a little bit of a well-known territory
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
LA Galaxy, they're going on the road, and that's going to be interesting to watch as those pieces fall. But
Yep.
we do have one more leg that is played tonight at 10 p.m. That is Vancouver versus Saprissa. And that's going to be an interesting one because Saprissa leads in an aggregate score of 12. Oh my goodness. That'd
Yeah,
be
Saprissa
great.
scoring 12 would be really
That'd
wild
be
in the first
insane.
leg.
2-1.
2-1 in Costa Rica in leg one. This one's at BC Place. Vancouver's got a ton of momentum after walloping Portland on the weekend. Jaden Nelson's speed is going to be a problem for Saprissa. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that'll be a better match than we maybe thought coming into this season's edition of CONCACAF. And then whoever wins it has to play Sergio Ramos and Monterrey, which is always an adventure whenever you see Sergio Ramos on the other side. So Monterrey is loaded. They're loaded to continue to prep for Club World Cup this summer. This feels like a toss-up tonight. I think Vancouver with the momentum. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about the Whitecaps tonight and see if they are just a pretty good team who got lucky about a first half red card, or if they're a team that might be able to make some noise in the Western Conference this year.
10 p.m. I have water and I have, a caffeinated drink as well. Gonna
There you
stay
go.
up for that one. Gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be a fun one. Gotta love the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Conca champions.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll be right back here on MLS Six Pack. When we come back, I had the opportunity to catch up with one of our fellow friends here on the SDH network in Jessica Charman to talk a little bit about the MLS season and heading into this Saturday in this rival derby as we get Atlanta United versus Charlotte FC. So stay around. We'll be right back.
Bases dropped on a new week of soccer down here.
It would be amazing. I'm just saying, 90 minutes compelling content. It's non-stop entertainment.
Kodai Tanaka, what a save! Kodai Tanaka cleans it up! And Kodai Tanaka says goodnight!
Right. He's back to the left. He's back to the right. He's back to the left. Plays it off. Goal! Goal! Goal!
Able to slip it through. Is going to find it, and it's in!
Gajardo with the left! Puts in the cross over the head of Carlton. It falls to him anyway. Right-footed shot. Goal! 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 Atlanta United 2, and they take the 4-3 lead.
Welcome in, Jessica Charman, as we get ready to talk about the MLS season, as we get ready for week 2 of the 2025 season. Jess, first question. What have you seen from the season so far, especially looking at the craziness that we saw in week 1?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting start to the MLS season for me because I'm coming at it from a new perspective, right? So I've been able to sit back and enjoy it from a neutral perspective, from a non-commentator's perspective, and just kind of consume it without being so crazy busy calling for a team. So I've had a lot of fun. It's been a little bit emotional because obviously with transition comes some sadness, but it's an exciting time for me. I think my favorite thing to see was a new side beginning in San Diego FC. As someone that was part of an inaugural season with a team with Charlotte FC, it's super special, and I'm excited for everyone in San Diego FC. And they won their first game, and not only did they win their first game, they won it against LA Galaxy in a 2-0 victory, getting the clean sheet, scoring goals. Drea with 2 goals. What a dream start to San Diego history that is for him. I like this storyline because, as we know, it can be very tough to come into a new league. A lot of teams struggle. It's not always clean sailing for teams. And I think San Diego is an exciting team to watch. I enjoyed watching the Atlanta United game. I'm not just saying that. I thought it was extremely exciting. Obviously, anytime you get 5 goals in a game, it's a really exciting moment. I do have some question marks around how Atlanta United defensively survives games, particularly until they can get reinforcements with injuries coming back. But that was a good one. And then I'll talk about Charlotte. Why not talk a little bit about Charlotte? I thought that they were disappointing, underwhelming. Seattle's a good side, but the way that Charlotte played in that game was disappointing, and they got really lucky with an own goal to get the point. So those are my 3 big ones, as we know, because I live in Atlanta. My heart is still with Charlotte, and anytime there's an inaugural side opening with their first game in history, it's always going to be special. And San Diego, I'm excited to see if they can continue and it not just be that first game bump that you maybe get when you're starting out a season.
San Diego, for me, was the biggest question mark, I think, heading into this season, especially with, obviously with expansion teams. It's very rare you see an expansion team start out, I think, on the front foot. And, especially going into this weekend, San Diego's looking to make history. They would be the club, only the 5th expansion club to win their first 2 matches if they won in their first home game of the season as well. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how they continue the season and if this is just, like you said, the first game bump, or if it's, just a little bit of like a moment that we're about to see something special here. Because, I mean, I keep thinking back to that second goal they scored. It was just brilliant from the build up to everything.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about San Diego is there's a lot of people in MLS that were making fun of the branding, that were a little bit disappointed about the branding of the side, a little bit disappointed about the way they were going about things, but the on-the-field product looked good. You don't just go out against the reigning champions and in their building get a 2-0 result without playing a good style of soccer, like you said. I thought LA Galaxy were disappointing. They've got to figure out what they do without Ricky Pooch with the ACL injury. That's going to be huge for LA Galaxy, but I'm excited to see the San Diego expansion side. It was also really cool, and obviously it's an interstate rivalry with San Diego and LA, but to see such a big amount of San Diego fans get to witness not only their first game, but their first victory as well.
It's so interesting when you look at this 2025 season. Not only is it just milestones, you're adding the 30th expansion team, it's also the 30th season. I want to ask you something that's a little bit different. Like, what is your earliest memory of MLS and just seeing the growth that it has gone on, especially, you being a part of an inaugural team in Charlotte and just now seeing the growth of the league?
Yeah, my earliest memory of Major League Soccer is my dad going to LA on a business trip and bringing me back a David Beckham LA Galaxy jersey. So that's pretty cool. I think David Beckham, anyone that's from England knows how important he was to history. People of my age, those 30-year-olds that grew up watching David Beckham, admiring David Beckham for your country, seeing what he could do, and then understanding that move that really was the first high-level move from England that maybe we witnessed. So that was the first time I started to maybe take MLS a little bit seriously. I'll be honest, as a self-confessed former Euro snob, I probably looked down at the league, and that was the first mark of gaining respect overseas, and now we've seen that just exponentially grow, and that's something I'm extremely proud to maybe have a small role in, is shaping the opinions on Major League Soccer back home. I have friends that when I moved to America would make fun of MLS that are now taking it seriously, that are staying up late to watch games, that are rooting for teams. Obviously a certain Lionel Messi has somewhat to do with that quick fire growth that we've seen over the past year or so. And it's just exciting to realize now that this is a league that is truly being respected. I think Wilfried Zaha coming is huge, and seeing Major League Soccer back into talking points and other teams being talked about overseas other than just into Miami, because as good for the league as Messi is, you need other teams sharing that limelight and seeing more big players make the move. Almiron coming back to Atlanta United, players really viewing this as a destination to not only finish their careers but continue to boost their careers. It is a really exciting thing. So David Beckham, an LA Galaxy jersey, and just now being, I feel like, a spokesperson for international relations in England, taking seriously Major League Soccer at last.
So many newcomers, which already leads into the next question. You know, we have the Derby coming up on Saturday, Atlanta versus Charlotte. I know it's such a fun one. At least, you know, everyone here. It's a fun game, especially with the Southeastern rivals. What are you expecting out of that game on Saturday?
I'm excited to see Latte Lat, honestly. I think, number one, he has an amazing name. Every commentator is dreaming of that name, and there's a lot of puns that can be made. So his speed and his runs and his dynamism is something that I think Atlanta United will be looking to utilize consistently, particularly when you look at the perhaps mismatch in fullback's pace. Nathan Byrne has speed on the right back side, but on our left back side, and Tim Ream, as an amazing defender, as the US men's national team captain is, he is in his mid-30s and he lacks a little bit of pace. So that's going to be something I find really interesting to look at. Wilfried Zaha now has been confirmed that he's had his baby, so congratulations to him. He's on a plane as we're recording this at 5 p.m. Over across the pond back to the USA. So Dean Smith has said that he expects him to be involved. So seeing his debut in Major League Soccer and seeing if he can have as good of an impact as Latte Lat's brace, and if he can do that, that'll be exciting for Charlotte. I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to will it into existence as someone that's going to be enjoying the game as a spectator, but I think on paper this has the potential for being a really high scoring game. I think both Atlanta United and Charlotte have some question marks defensively, but they also have some firepower going forward. So now that I've said that I think it's going to be a 5-goal over-under game, it will probably be a 0-0, but I'm hoping that we're going to get some goals to talk about.
It's always so fun, this rivalry. I mean, I think you're looking at two players, you know, Latte Lat and then Zaha coming in as well for Charlotte FC. I mean, it's going to be so cool to see both of them take the pitch, especially if we get to see him make his debut on Saturday. I think the game is marked for greatness. I think we're going to see a lot of firsts in that game as well. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I would agree with you. I would think it'd be a high-scoring game, but you know, we're going to say it here, and then it's going to be like a 1-1 draw or like something like that.
Hey, as long as it's a good, exciting game. My favorite part about this whole storyline, though, is expecting there to be lots of traveling fans, a good Charlotte FC atmosphere in Bank of America Stadium. It just makes games. It just adds a tier to the game when you're able to create that rivalry, to create that traveling fan base. So excited to see some familiar faces, excited to see you, excited to see Jason and Mike in the booth. It's going to be a lot of fun to be a part of. And for me, it's going to be fun because it'll be my first derby that I haven't been working for. So I'm going to enjoy it as a spectator.
It's going to be a ton of fun, Jess. So thank you so much for joining MLS Six Pack today, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Absolutely looking forward to it.
Bases dropped on a new week of soccer down here.
It would be amazing. I'm just saying, 90 minutes compelling content. It's non-stop entertainment.
Kodai Tanaka, what a save! Kodai Tanaka cleans it up, and Kodai Tanaka says goodnight!
Right. He's back to the left, he's back to the right, he's back to the left, plays it off, goal! Goal! Goal!
Gajardo with the left!
Puts in the cross over the head of Carlton. It falls to him anyway. Right-footed shot. Goal, goal, goal! Atlanta United 2, and they take the 4-3 lead.
Welcome back to MLS Six Pack here on the SDH Network. Once again, I want to say thank you to Jessica Charman for taking the time to chat with me earlier today to talk about the MLS season, because this weekend I think is going to be a lot more craziness than I think anyone else is expecting.
A lot of questions are going to get answered this weekend, I think. Maybe not in full, but we're gonna learn a little bit more about some of these teams in week 2.
I think one of the biggest things, we had so much big news heading into this weekend in particular. I mean, you have obviously a lot of newcomers that have come in, more specifically, Emmanuel Latte Lat has come in. A lot of other teams, obviously, San Diego, Dreyer as well. He came in and made a huge impact, but a lot of newcomers in MLS really, taking their time to show everyone in week 1 what they're made of.
Yeah, Marco Pasalic from Orlando as well. He's got big shoes to fill from Facundo Torres. Dreyer maybe surprised everybody with his 2 goals. A lot of expectations for Latte Lat, but he gets his 2 goals to show for it. I mean, Denke is another one who there's a lot of expectations on in Cincinnati. He's lived up to it so far and been really consistent for them up front. So a lot of newcomers in new places. And how does that continue in the second week for those teams? You see players who come into the league who have been playing in Europe. They're essentially in mid-season kind of form. How are they going to feel when you get into the American summer? How are they going to feel when you get into the second half when they've been playing for about 18 months? How managers manage the time that these guys put in on the field. It's going to be interesting this season to see how that goes with these guys specifically, Dreyer, with Denke, with Pasalic, with Latte Lat.
So obviously, looking at the schedule for Saturday, the first game of the day is obviously Atlanta United versus Charlotte FC. That's going to be at around 2:15 due to whatever it's going to be playing on Fox.
5 kickoff is what we found out officially. You got the extended Fox pregame. Look, we talked a lot about this game on Training Ground Dispatch on the SDH network. You're going to hear a lot about it tomorrow on SDH AM. You heard about it this morning with Will Pelagic on the show. Tons out there about it. We don't need to go too deep into it now. That biggest element, and Jess talked about it in the last segment, Wilfred Zaha, wife had the baby, I think early this morning, our time, and he is back in Charlotte as of now. He was going to do an afternoon training session just to kind of, get assessed and then train with the team tomorrow, which will be a light session, and they'll make a decision. At a minimum, you'd expect him to play a role, even if he doesn't start.
Especially because you had the club releasing that, obviously saying that he's back.
Well, that can be shenanigans.
It could be.
I mean, you can say that to make the opponents have to deal with, okay, he might start, and you got to plan for that. Ronnie Dyla has been around the block a little bit too. So it's part of the situation. If he comes back and he's fit enough to play a role, he'll play a role. If he's fit enough to start, he'll start, especially at home in the home opener. And if he's not, then he won't. You got to think long term. If he's not able to give you what he needs, then they're not going to risk him for later in the season to potentially go out and get injured in this one. So my guess is he plays a role. I think asking him to start might be asking a lot, unless they feel like they can get 45 plus minutes out of him. We'll see.
I think Jess is right. You might see him more coming off of the bench, but
that's my guess.
Once he comes in, that's going to be, it's going to be fun.
There's a lot of hype for him. We'll see if he can live up to it. The newcomers so far have. We'll see if he can join that club.
Yep. All right. I'm going to read through the schedule, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to, if you want to talk about it, you tell me to stop, and I'll stop.
All right.
I did this with John one time, so we're going to just see if it
can always be dangerous.
Very dangerous. But coming up, we have Seattle Sounders at Salt Lake. That's going to be at 4:30 p.m.
That's an interesting one just because Seattle's always had bad luck in Utah. So we'll see if they can continue that run of bad luck. And RSL needs a result after a draw against Herediano last week, after a horrific defeat in San Jose, and then a very bad defeat to Herediano last night in Salt Lake City. So they need something out of this game, RSL.
You got Columbus Crew at New England. That's going to start everything at 7:30 p.m.
I don't know what to think of New England yet, so we'll see.
You have a little question mark. I saw the
It's
field
like
start-
totally right over the top of my head. I don't know. They have so many new faces. Like I like what they did. I like some of the signings, but I don't know how it's going to come together.
Also, too, it's interesting with Columbus Crew. It was a question mark as to who would be the replacement for Cucho Hernandez, and then we see them go down against Chicago, and then like old Columbus Crew were able to come back and win it 4-2 because Nancy is incredible.
Diego Rossi's going to be that guy right now. We'll see if he can be that guy for a long period of time.
All right, moving on. We got Nashville at New York. That's at 7:30.
Red Bulls are
Red Bulls.
going to make it really difficult for Nashville in that game. I'm not high on Nashville right now at all.
Yep. Toronto at Orlando.
Orlando needs a response after Philadelphia came into their house and kicked the door down and went into their fridge and ate a sandwich and drank their beers. And, Orlando's got to have some kind of a response to that. And Toronto, we'll see if they let Lorenzo Insigne on the plane. I don't know. They might not.
We're about to find out. We'll see what happens. But we'll take a look at FC Cincinnati at Philadelphia.
Ooh, this becomes a much more interesting game than I thought it was going to be going into week one because of what Philadelphia did in stealing Orlando's sandwich and eating it. Cincinnati beat Red Bulls at TQL Stadium last week. That's a good win for them. I'm very high on the Red Bulls. So this is always an interesting game because they play so similarly. I think we're still getting to learn what Bradley Carnell's Philadelphia is going to look like versus what Jim Curtin's Philadelphia looked like for so long. We know what Cincinnati is going to look like, although we're getting used to seeing what it is with Evander rather than Lucho Acosta. So two teams we feel like we know pretty well, but have some differences, and maybe that changes how this rivalry's gone. I think Cincinnati's the better team. Philadelphia's got a lot of momentum, and they're fresher because Cincinnati played 2 games in CONCACAF. So I would not have said this going into week one, but I think Philadelphia will get the win.
Now we move on to the 8:30 p.m. time slot. We have 3 games there. That's going to start with DC United at Chicago.
Next.
Very, very quick.
Sorry, DC. Sorry, Chicago. No Brian Gutierrez, no party for me. Chicago was better than I thought they'd be, but and DC, there's other games at 8:30.
All right, we got San Jose at Sporting Kansas City.
Can San Jose do it again? And can they do it on the road? I have no idea what the answer to that question is. Sporting Kansas City's got to feel pretty down at the moment after a bad performance on Tuesday in Fort Lauderdale against Inter Miami. I thought they'd put up more of a fight. Messi didn't have to Vulcan nerve pinch Peter Vermes, which that would have been a move. If he had pulled that off on Peter Vermes, I don't know if we'd be seeing Lionel Messi anymore. I think Kansas City, I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's what's so interesting about this week is, we saw a lot of San Jose and we saw some negatives on Sporting Kansas City. Is that actually what these two teams are? Or are they more even like we thought they were coming into the season? I don't know. I'm really intrigued to see San Jose on the road. That's going to be the thing I'll be looking for in that one.
And you take a look to, you have CF Montreal going to Minnesota, which is interesting because it's their second road game of, I believe, 7?
6.
6
on the road to start the season for Laurent Courtois and CF Montreal. I've said it consistently going into last week. I said it coming out of the game last week. I said it when we talked to Garth Lagerwey at Emory University on Monday. I've said it all week long. Montreal's really good. Montreal's a good team. They don't have the most talent, but they have one of the best coaches in Laurent Courtois. Minnesota is one of those teams in the West that, one, I don't have a good feel for how good they're going to be this year. And 2, how do they handle a Montreal team that plays in a little bit different way? I think it's a more exaggerated version of what Columbus is. And I think it has to be more exaggerated because you're trying to make up the difference in talent a little bit with a scheme and with a style and a tactic. So I'm really interested to see if Montreal can go get something in Minnesota. They're capable, just like they probably should have got something out of the game in Atlanta. Can they do that in Minnesota? We'll find out at 8:30.
really, really like Laurent Courtois and what he's going to do up at Montreal this season. I mean, he's a great coach. Just basically echoing everything you just said. But FC Dallas at Colorado Rapids. That's at 9:30.
So Colorado has played 2 in CONCACAF. Dallas has not. Dallas had a good week 1. I do like this Colorado team a lot. How do they handle a little bit of the hangover from CONCACAF? Because I mean, it's CONCACAF fever, and it gets kind of rowdy sometimes, and you might need to take something after that hangover. We'll see if the Rapids can handle it. Dallas, I want to see how they continue to grow under Lucho Acosta and Eric Quill. Look, another new manager in the league who I liked what we saw from Dallas in the preseason finale against Atlanta. I liked how aggressive they were. I liked how it looked in that game. I have concerns about them defensively, but Eric Quill is an up-and-coming young manager that is going to get to put his stamp on this team in their first game like this on the road. We'll see how they handle it. Colorado's not an easy place to play.
No. We got 3 games at 10:30 p.m. And starting off, it's going to be an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference. It's going to be NYCFC at LAFC.
It's a long trip for NYC. They had a man advantage for the majority of the match in Fort Lauderdale last week, and they couldn't get the win. That's going to be a bit of a drag for them and Pascal Jensen. LAFC, they managed the series against Colorado. They won on away goals. We said it last week. That last goal for LAFC in Colorado in leg 1 is what ultimately wins them the matchup. So what do they have in the tank after playing 2 additional games? And can NYC shake off the disappointment of not getting 3 points when it was on the table against the team that was the best in the regular season last year? A lot of questions for both of these teams in this one. I think LAFC's got enough to get it done at home. That's just such a long trip and a tough place to go in and play after that long trip.
Now, next one, we'll see if the Portland Timbers can get a result at home as they will be hosting Austin FC.
Can they keep 11 players on the field, and then maybe they'll have that opportunity to get a result at home? Austin got a, not so sexy win in week 1, but it's a win. It's 3 points. Portland, people are already loading up the moving vans for Phil Neville, and I think they probably did that when he was hired, which is unfair. He's got to show something here, and his players have to show something more importantly. And when you lose at home in the way that they did last week, even with the red card, it's a problem. There's alarm bells going off. So let's see how the Timbers respond to that against an Austin team that should be much better this year.
And I think the juice box for me is got to be St. Louis at San Diego.
San Diego looked really good at home. They looked better than St. Louis. They looked really good on the road. They're getting home. They looked better than St. Louis did in week 1. Will they handle the moment? Because it'll be emotional. It'll be a lot of pomp and circumstance. Will they handle that? St. Louis can just come in and just play. They don't have to worry about any of that. They're just going to press like maniacs. That's what they're going to do. Can San Diego handle the moment? And it sounds weird, but we talked about this with Atlanta United a lot last season. Playing at home is a whole different kind of pressure. Playing at home in the first game, home game in club history is a very different kind of pressure. Can San Diego handle it? Again, we're going to get some answers about this team in this match, how they deal with those moments.
Let's move on to Sunday. We only have 2 games at 5 p.m. LA Galaxy at Vancouver.
Galaxy have to bounce back. They're going into CONCACAF now. They have to bounce back after a very disappointing week 1. And they're going up against a team that had a great week 1. They did get the benefit of that red card from Kamal Miller, but they took advantage of it. Now we see how Vancouver handles tonight against Saprissa, because they're going to have to throw everything at the wall. They have an opportunity to advance into a series with Monterrey, which would be huge for the Whitecaps. We don't know the result for this, so what we're saying might be thrown out the window. But if I am Vancouver, I am playing everybody full tilt to the wall tonight. And if that means I have to heavily rotate and go with reserves on Sunday at 5 in my home opener, I'll take that, because it's worth it to try to get to the next round of CONCACAF and get a home and away with Monterrey. It'd be massive for the Whitecaps. Throw everything at it, Galaxy game, if you have anything left in the tank, you do your best.
Second edition of Sunday Night Soccer at 7 p.m. It's one of the teams you're watching this season, Houston Dynamo against Inter Miami.
Yeah, Jack McGlynn is a player that got profiled at MLSsoccer.com this week by Charlie Boehm, a player that I think will thrive in that system. He had a good game one for the Dynamo, even if the team did not have the best of games against FC Dallas. Miami, look, we know what Miami is at this point, but they've played 2 games in CONCACAF, and those games add up, and Miami is an older team. Do they rotate in this one? They were able to get Messi out in the second half. They were able to take some other guys out in the second half. I think they might rotate the start, and Houston's going to have to take advantage of that. This is a Dynamo team that, outside of Seattle and right now LAFC, because I think you might have to question the Galaxy being in that front 3 in the Western Conference. Past that, you tell me. It's a crapshoot in the West. The Dynamo could be the 4th best team. This is a time to show it. This is a time for Jack McGlynn to step up and lead this team. Putting a lot of weight on his shoulders. He's still young, but if he's going to become the player that I think he's capable of, it can start in a game like this with everybody watching. The whole league will be watching. That's the thing about the Sunday Night Soccer game. It's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger, and this is a really good opportunity for the Dynamo to plant their flag. I think they're going to win. That's my bold prediction of the week. I think the Dynamo get the win at home over. I mean, it's not that bold to pick the home team, but against Miami, it's kind of bold. I'm going Dynamo win 3-2.
All right, everyone, listen. If this is correct, you thank Jason for your fantasy picks as we get going. But
Juice boxes.
all the juice boxes. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's edition of MLS Six Pack here on the SDH Network. We'll be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. where myself and Jason Longshore recap everything that happened this week and get you ready for match week number 3. Bye, guys. See y'all later.
Adios, everybody.